Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this episode we are going to be putting our rear cross member in with a hitch receiver, which is an American terminology, and I'm about to show you what that's all about. So basically what I've got is a pre-bent bit of 3mm, took this into work and bent it on the box and pan folder. I had to plasma because our box and pan folder at work isn't designed for 3mm, so I just had to plasma some slots in that I'll then have to fill with weld and grind them down flush. But that's angled to the angle of this panel, internal panel on the back of the Niva. I'll show you how I got that angle in a bit. And that just slots up inside there like so. Like a glove is the correct term for that, I believe. And then we have what's called a hitch receiver, which is an American thing. And it's something that I actually particularly like about American engineering, is this hitch receiver. Because what this allows for is like a zero clearance tolerance for off-roading, so we can remove and put our hitch in really quick. So I'm actually going to be making an off-road trailer for the back of this, so that's for the future date. So we're going to modify this to fit into our rear cross member somewhere, obviously in the middle. So it's going to like make our approach and departure angle minimal still. So that's going to be modified to fit. And then we have some nasty old bits of 50mm box section, which ironically are from an old drawbar from a Lada Niva. That Niva, actually. So they're going to be used to go laterally in the chassis. And then, yeah, it's all going to get welded together. And I'll show you the next step, or how I'm going to mark all this out and get it ready for assembly. So here we are at the back of the Niva, and I've taken the liberty of chopping out the floor, because you guys are not going to be interested in watching me get an angle grinder and chop all this out. All I did was just 9-inch grinder, chop through the existing bits of chassis back here, and then ground all the spot welds out and rip the floor out. It was all knackered anyway, so it didn't take, well, it actually took longer than I thought it would, but such is life. So the first thing I did, though, before removing the floor, was I got my fancy fandangled angle finder. Get this at an angle that you guys can see. And I put it on the bottom of the chassis like that. And then I slid it up to where this cross member is. This is actually sprung back a bit. And that's how I've set my angle. So now I know that's the original angle, because I knew as soon as I chopped all this out, this might spring up, which it did. So that's quite important for us. And that's how I also got this angle here and knew. So all I did was just spin this upside down, and now that's bent to the correct angle. Hopefully you can see that. I can't tell. All right. And I'm keeping that set at that angle because we're going to do a lot of marking out on the box section and stuff like that using that angle. So keep that set at that. Don't let it get moved. So all I've got to do now is get the wire wheel on the grinder, rip all this out. Now, this is 50mm box section. Turns out the chassis is actually folded to 55mm. Now, you might think that's going to give me some pain, but I'm actually quite happy about that. And I haven't mentioned this so far on the channel, so this is going to be a bit of news for you. But this sits in here nicely. Let me just check that you can see that. Yep, you can. It sits in here nicely, and I'm wanting it to sit against the tub, so I'm going to have to bend this in, this side panel here of this chassis, in to weld it onto the box section. But then it's going to sit too low. But I'm happy about that, because back here, in approximately this area, we're going to have a winch mounted. I do actually have a mile marker, which is a really nice winch. It's hydraulic, but I don't think, I am putting power steering on this, but I don't think the engine will have enough power to drive the power steering pump with the winch running. So I'm going to put an electric winch back here, but that's for a later date. And the reason I'm happy that this is 5mm lower down is because I'm going to use 3mm plate in the back of here, so that I can bolt the winch onto that 3mm plate. And what that'll allow me to do is it'll actually allow me to slide the 3mm plate under the floor here, because you've got your cross member here, and this is actually folded. So you can slide your 3mm plate under there, and then that will allow for the force of that winch to be pushed directly against the cross member, rather than having to have that 3mm plate sat on top. Is going to be pushing against this cross member here. So that's perfect. Now, what I would have liked is that I'd liked to have some longer box section, but I'm a peasant at the moment and can't afford any kind of materials. Basically, I'm kind of broke. Just bought a house and all that. So I'm having to make do. I would have liked some longer box section because I'd have got rid of this chassis completely and welded the box section directly onto the cross member here. But what I'm going to have to do is, like I say, just weld it into the original chassis. So let's crack on, get all this wire wheeled up, and we'll lash some paint on it as well, I think, for the sake of it. Right, so on your standard Niva, the chassis rails sweep out at this point, which we could actually use to our advantage. So if we had our box section, we're going to have it against the wheel arch tub. Put it in there like that. We could actually use it to our advantage and have it so it sweeps in and actually meets in nicely here. But I don't want to do that because number one, I just can't be bothered with marking that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut where the radius starts on the chassis. So we could just eyeball that, but it's right enough. But I'm not going to cut straight down, and you'll notice I use angled cuts a lot. And on bodywork, the reason is because humans naturally have a knack. I don't know why, but they have a knack for seeing vertical and horizontal lines. They can pick them up a lot. So if you do on bodywork, if you cut a panel out horizontally and then weld it up, or vertically and weld it up, and there's any distortion, people will see that very easily. They'll pick it up straight away, just naturally with their eyes. Whereas if you cut it at an angle, it almost camouflages that distortion. It's weird. I don't know why, but it works like that. Now that's not why I'm doing that here. I'm going to cut this at an angle because we're going to be having this as a tow frame. So we're going to be towing off all of this. And if we cut an angle, it gives us a greater area of weld, which is obviously stronger because it's a bit like using a bigger bolt. Yeah, a bigger weld holds more weight. So I'm just going to set my combination square to 45, and I'll tell you what, we'll actually do this properly. Let's do it the same on each side. So let's measure out from the rear cross member. I'm going to go exactly 150 millimeters back from the rear, from the cross member, just behind the rear axle, and then do the same on the other side. And then I'm going to use my combination square to cut a mark out at 45 degrees, and that's what I'll cut to. Cut that out now. Lovely. And then we get our box section. We sit it in there. Jobs are good. Tip top. And then what we can do is we'll actually cut a slot here, and then that'll allow us to bend that in so that we can weld it. But for now, we're going to leave that. Smashing. So both our bits of box section sitting in there nicely, like that. And as we can see, I don't know if you can see that from the camera angle, but it is about 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters lower than the original floor, which, like I say, I'm happy about because that'll allow me to slot our new floor, which is going to have our winch mounted to it, underneath the original floor. And then that'll push it directly against the rear cross member, this cross member just behind the axle. So Next thing, we're going to cut our angles on our bit of box section, ready for welding onto our rear cross member. So we take our angle that we got earlier on, and I'm going to take, because I chopped this out of an old tow bar, some of them have got bits of weld on them still. This one doesn't, so I'm just going to take keep the prettier end and chop the bit that I've cocked up my cuts a little bit. I take my pen, put it on there like that, and that's our first angle, and then making sure that I mark it in the same direction. I put it on the other side, and I mark it like that again. Jobs are good. Somewhere I have got a combination square. I could use an engineer's square, but like I say, we're not getting carried away here. Bang it on there, and that's our cut line. And then I repeat that on the other one, and I cut it. So I've got them marked out now. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in my channel, my chassis channel, and have it tucked up nicely against the wheel arch tub, so I know it's parallel. And I'm just going to drag my scribe down inside the channel along the length of that box, and that gives me a cut mark. And then I repeat on the other side. I'm just going to cut along them lines. And then I'll also start from where our corner goes up on our channel and take it down to nothing. So that's the end of my cut. Right, it's time to go cut our box section. I'm going to cut to the inside of this so it leaves the flat spot on the end of the box section, which will give us a nice area to get some good penetration on our weld. I'll just blend that in. Right, so we've got them all cut, and hopefully you can see this, but you might start to understand where we're going with this now. That angle mates up nicely on both sides, mates up really nice. Okay, so all I'm going to do is eyeball it so that it's parallel. I'd even get my ruler if I wanted and put that there. I can't be bothered, so I'm not going to get too... actually, yeah, let's do that. And do that on this side as well. I'm just making sure it's parallel with the chassis. Lovely. And then I'm just going to get my pen, and I'm actually going to... I don't like the looks of that. That looks better to me. I'm just going to mark out with a black marker where I need to be cutting. Like that. We're only after a rough guide because this is going to have that 3mm cross member behind here. So this is just a hole for us to basically allow that to be slotted in after we've welded it all up. So we can actually cut these a bit bigger if we really wanted. There we go. So they now should just slot straight through, which they do. Jobs are good. Right, I'm going to put them there for now. And then we're going to spend a bit of time working on our cross membering hitch receiver. Right, so this is our actual cross member, and we've got to weld all these up in a bit. But first of all, I'm going to mark this out, and we want our hitch to be in the middle, somewhere in the middle. You know, not exactly. Well, Yes, it does want to be fairly precise, actually, because it's going to look really crap if it's not in the middle. So we want it in the middle. All right. So I'm just going to measure the width, which is 1010 millimeters, which means we need to mark 55 millimeters, and we're going to chop that in half. And it's as simple as that, really. Get our square, bang that on here. Like so. And again. Flip it over. We'll put it on there because that's a guaranteed square edge, whereas our plasma cut and folded edge isn't guaranteed square. And then we're just going to chop it. Right, and then what I'm going to do, because I've just marked that out and cut it and had to take a square edge off this rounded edge, which we're not entirely sure if it is square, I'm literally going to spin them around because they're factory edges. So we know that they're roughly somewhere near square. And then our hitch, I'm going to pull this pin. Our hitch is going to go, hey presto, something like that. Now I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I'm unsure whether this is going to work, that I'm going to be able to put that pin in from the inside of the car. So you'd have to open the tailgate basically to get your pin in and out. Because this is a hitch receiver, we won't be pulling this out too often. But I do like the idea of the pin being inside the car, because it stops people nicking your bloody, whatever hitch you've got in there, basically. So that's the plan. We're going to take all the paint off this. This part here, I'm about to chop through that. I'll probably use 9-inch grinder on that. And this box section is then going to get pulled out, and we're going to use that as part of our new hitch when we make our new trailer in future. I've got plans for that. So that's the plan, shall we say. So I'm just going to clean all this up, chop through that with a 9-inch grinder, and then we can actually get ready to tack all this together and assemble it, basically. Right. Hey, presto. So that's now going to go in there, like so. Job's a good one. Bob's your uncle. Fanny's your aunt. Da 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 da. And then these two bits here will go like that. Look at that. Job's a good one. Right. I'm going to clean this up with a flex disc on the grinder to get the paint off it. And then let's weld her up. I'll also take the mill scale off here where we're going to be welding it up. That's what flex this is designed for, really, is ripping this mill scale off here. Right, so because what we're doing next is fairly precise, we've got ourselves a precision engineering surface in the shape of an old pallet. It's not ideal, but it'll do. And what I've done is I've actually got my square, which is a nice straight edge, and I've just checked that this edge here is lovely and straight, which it is. There's no daylight passing through it anyway when I slide it along, and it's also not bad along that edge there. So first things first, we're going to get our hitch receiver, put it somewhere near the middle, and then we're going to get our framing square, put it against the edge here. I'm actually going to use an engineer's square and bang it on here, and then slide my square up to that, and then I know I'm actually on my edge there. And then I'm going to get my square again, put it against the hitch receiver like so, slide it down, and then as I slide this across, I know that's square or not with the edge of the pallet, and then I'm going to slide it in until it bottoms out, because I want this hitch receiver to be as close into the cross member as possible. So I'm happy with that now. Leave that there. And then I get my my cross member. I'm going to have to space this off now that I think about it. Pretty sure I am anyway. I am. I'm going to have this so that it's at the top. Have I got anything that I can space that off with? Lovely. Let me just double check that is 50mm, which I think it is, but I'd rather double check. Rather be 100%. Yeah, it is, yeah. Smashing. Right, we put that there now. And then we use an engineer's square just to make sure it is square or somewhere near. Spot on, right. And then I'm going to get my welder all set up with the Bowler Uranus 2000 SMC as provided by Rambaldini Welding Services. We're going to set it to 3mm, program 2, which is our non-spot welding program, and then we're going to turn it up to 3mm. We might even turn it up a bit hotter, actually, I don't know, we'll see. And we're going to turn our gas on. Been welding since I was 8, and even now I still regularly try and weld without gas, and it never comes out well. Right, let's send it. We're going to attack opposites because we want to minimize distortion. Lovely. Right, so that's looking pretty good. Job's a good one. We can take that spacer out of there now. Put this back on there. I did just move it. Make sure we're square again here. Engineer's square, slide that down there. A man on a galloping horse wouldn't notice, as my dad says. I'm going to eyeball it. I'm just going to look down and make sure that I'm happy with that. Now, it is currently sort of, this is, the ends here are further in than the middle. I don't mind that. I'm actually quite happy about that because the panel on the back of the Niva is curved like that. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to eyeball it all, make sure I'm happy with it being square. How's that looking there? Yeah, it's looking all right. So I've measured between our wheel arch tubs, and it's 1060. So if we divide that by 2, it's 530. And if we measure from the center out, mark 530, and then the center out, mark 530, and that will tell us the location of our box section, which is here. And then we line that up with our markings, make sure it's all square, tack it in place. So let's crack on and do that. So I've got my box section lined up there. Just going to get an engineer's square, put it on there, and make sure that it is square. It is. So that's nice and square now. Let's just bang a tack on it. Double check that we're square, which it has pulled just a bit. Nothing we can't deal with though. Right, and then repeat the process on the other side. Job sorted. Right, let's give it a test fit. What we're going to do is we're actually going to slot it into our chassis, and then we'll use our actual hitch to mark out where we need to cut out on the rear cross member. Right, so I've actually got it sat in here. It's currently perched on top of this framing square here. And I've just got it sat inside the chassis rails. It's fitting relatively well, actually. And then what I did is sort of measured it up, and then I actually stood as far back in my garden as I could do, and I eyeballed it with the rest of it. So I eyeballed it with this hole in the middle here, that's bang in the middle, and with the latch for the boot, because I know that they'll be central. And I just looked at it and thought, does that look central? And it does. Now, if it didn't, I'd know there was something wrong somewhere, and I'd have to start doing some jiggery pokery. So all I'm going to do now, get my paint pen and mark where the edge of our hitch receiver is. And then I'm actually going to cut that 50 millimeters up, because our cross member is 50 millimeters. I'm not going to go the full depth of the hitch receiver, because if I did, that would be too high. So 50 millimeters up, and then I'll cut that out, slot it all back in, and see how we're looking. That's at 50, get a cutting disc, cut that out. I'm going to cut to the inside of my lines, because as like I always say, it's easy to take more metal off. As well. Just have to cut this bit out here, and then I'm going to have to patch that up at a later date, like I did on the other side. Nice. It's just going to take a bit more off. Ta-da! Lovely. Now I'll just have to make a bit of sheet metal to go up inside there, and I'll be a happy, happy chap. Job's a good one. And it looks like we might just get away with our pin being in the middle as well, like I was talking about before. Right, it's time to weld her out. I've already gone over these plasma cuts with the flex disc. I've just done that because there was a bit of distortion there. I've just taken that distortion out with the flex disc, and then I'm going to weld her up. And I've got my material thickness on 3. There is a bit of a gap here, but I'm going to run with the gap because it's actually quite a good thing there's a gap for strength. But if it does start getting carried away with me, I'll just turn my my settings down a bit. All right, let's crack on. Yeah, I'm just going to turn them settings down, blaring through like mad. So what I've done is I've actually welded that side first, and then I'm actually welding this side now, because I'm hoping what it's going to do is it's going to pull it like a banana, so it follows the profile of the back panel a bit better. I'm not overly concerned if it's bang on straight, to be honest, because I'll just make it so the profile on the back of the car's straight. But it'd be nice if it had a bit of a profile to it. Need a new lens on my mask. I can't see jack all. Right, I'll just blend them in. In an ideal world, this would all be jigged up, but we don't have. Well, I actually have the fixture tables. I just haven't got the space for them at the moment. So wait until I get a workshop, and then we'll have a fixture table, and it'll all be clamped in place to stop distortion. But we're just going to have to make do with it at the moment. Right, let's weld these joints up here. Again, I'm going to weld from this side first, and then work my way around, and that'll pull it so that it follows the profile of the actual car better. So I've had to stop on my corners. In an ideal world, we wouldn't stop on our corners. We'd actually start in the middle, wrap around our corners because it creates a stress point. But I'm only making this to tow 750 kilos. And trust me, this is going to be well over engineered for 750 kilos because this hitch point here is actually going to be welded onto our 3mm plate as well, which our winch is going to be mounted to. So we're going to have no issues at all with the strength of this. All right, looking good. Let's see if we can get you some shots of the welds. Not bad considering I've just thrown them on a pallet. Stop starts could do with a bit of work. Might have to set up the hot start, or I mean, don't help that I've started on the corners. Right, let's bang her in place and see what she looks like. All right, so I've got it in place. My box section is actually a bit further in than I originally thought, and that's quite annoying actually. But now that I've done the classic and fully welded it up, it's staying that way. I could have just done with it being a bit further out, but we're just gonna have to live with the way it is, I'm afraid. Something I forgot to mention earlier on is that when I chopped this back end out, before I chopped it out, I took a measurement on each side just so that I could ensure that it was all hunky-dory when it went back together. And this side was 100, which it still is. This side was 105, which has actually gone down to 100 now. But that makes it the same as the other side, so I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. So I'm just going to leave that exactly where it is. What I might do, actually, is I'll measure off this centre cross member as well. So if I measure from there to there, that is 265 millimeters. And we do the same again, and it's 265 again. So hunky-dory, happy days. So what I'm doing now is I've got this clamp here in the middle, and that's pulling my outer skin into the box section. And I'm just going to work my way along there, tacking as I go along. I'm going to work my way from the inside out, because if I work my way from the outside in, because my skins are close up to this box section, it might cause it to kink towards the middle, whereas if I work my way out, it'll give us an area for that material to dissipate to. Hopefully that makes sense. Right, hopefully it's not just me that thinks that looks pretty freaking good. I'll obviously get fully welded, that will, but for now we just got to focus on tacking it all together, minimising distortion. Double check my measurements again, make sure I'm happy with them. All right, let's grind that weld down. That was a bit of a bugger to weld up, that was, to be honest. little bit thin on one of the points. That's better. Right. I've been told that we've got to be going out by my last now, so I'm just going to have to lash some paint on this. And happy days. Right. There you have it. I've just lashed some primer on there, and the curtains were being pulled up at the same time as I was putting it on, but it's on there. Like I say, this is all going to get ripped off in the end anyway, so, and a proper base coat and good paint job. But there she is. That's welded onto the chassis there. Plug welded on the bottom as well. Same on this side. And then, like I say, there's going to be a big sheet of 3mm that's going to sit over the top of here. And this member here is also going to be welded into 3mm. So it's going to be really strong by the time it's done, especially as I'm only ever going to be towing 750 kilos. That's the maximum I'll ever tow on this. And then the 3mm is going to sit under that lip there and press against that bulkhead. I'm hoping I'm not going to be limited on space with my winch here. It looks just a bit tight, but we'll see. And then the exhaust is just going to come straight out here. I've welded at these points here, at the low points, and then these are just going to act as gutters basically. I was going to paint up inside here, but when I had a look, the paint was like new, so I figured if it's lasted 40 years, then it'll do me. So I didn't bother painting up inside here in the end. My pin does fit, which I'm very happy about. So I can put that in from inside. Makes it a bit less nickable. So I've just got to make little plates for filling these in, to go around there as well. It's a bit of an ugly weld, that. Like I say, I found out that we were in a rush, and I should have really just left that bit and waited. But anyway, I'll try and make this look quite nice around here, but I'm not going to video it. And I've also got to make a plate to go in there and everything. Yeah, I'm not going to video it. It's all just little nicks and knacks, and they take ages. These are the bits that take a long time on projects. I'll just lash some top coat on that now. So the old box section will slide in there, and the pin will drop in, and then there'll be I've got an idea for an off-road coupling that'll go on there. But there she is. I'm quite happy with that. If you look at the white one in the background, just there you can see my recovery hooks. So I'll also be putting some of them on this this yellow one as well, in a similar situation, similar position. But I'll be much happier because they're just mounted on the factory chassis, which doesn't inspire. Well, they've got so the hooks are welded to 3mm angle iron, but because of the short length of material that you can weld that angle iron onto, I've never been very keen on them doing like snatch recoveries and whatnot. It doesn't inspire confidence. I always try and recover off the front. Whereas this, I'll be a lot happier giving it some grief when I'm being recovered and when I'm recovering. So I've been umming and ahhing about what the next steps are after I've done this rear cross member and everything, and that's pretty much done now. I've just got to put that bit of 3mm plate in and do the quarters. And I was wondering about the best way of going about this, because I didn't know whether to do the cage next, or the wheel arch tubs, or the transmission tunnel. There's so much to do, and figuring out the right order to do it in is the hard part. But I figured I'm going to do the wheel arches, so the arch tubs next, because there's no point in doing the cage and then finding out I can't get my my larger arch tubs in around the cage. So that's the next stage. We're going to make our larger wheel arch tubs so we can fit those 33s on. But first of all, I'm going to have to design on CAD, because those of you that know my white Niva will know the custom sills I've got on it, which are made out of 2mm carbon steel and got fancy pressings and stuff like that. I'm going to make some for this, but I want to make them I want to draw them up on CAD so that I can then sell the sills as a kit. So to do that, I'm going to take the dimensions off this one, draw them up on CAD, and then have it so that if people put like 29-inch tires or 30-inch tires on, and they do the arch cut, that they can then mark out easily the shortness, the shorter sills, and actually modify, well, make the sills fit to any length sill. So obviously, if you've got standard sills, standard tires on, you want the standard arches, so you just weld them straight on. And then if you've got your 30-inch tires, there's going to be a mark further in that you can just cut to and fit your sills. And then if you've got 33-inch tires, which not so many people will do, then you can even shorten them down even more. And that's my idea. Make it like a modular kit. So that's my plan. Hopefully some people will be interested in having some sills like that. It's going to be like a Mark II version of the sills on the white one. There's certain things I'm not very happy about with the sills on the white one. So that's it for this video. I'm very happy with how my cross members come out. If you like what you see, please like, share, comment, and subscribe and ring that bell. It's very much appreciated. And until the next one, cheers for now.